Good afternoon, folks. So today we're going to do a video about basil plants and how to grow basil. It's been a long time since I've done any plants about basil specifically and how to grow basil and the best practices I can give to you guys. So what I'm going to go through is kind of how you want your seed starting to be, how you want your plants to grow, what I do for fertilization, and then a couple other things, potting up. I'm doing some potting up right now. I also have some seedlings off to our left here of basil growing, so I'll kind of show you those and kind of give you an overview of how to seed start. So let's turn you around and we'll kind of go through the greenhouse here and give you a really good interpretation of how to grow basil successfully. Got some basil here. We have 2 rows of lemon basil, and then we have 1 row of Italian large leaf basil right there. You can plant them amongst all of the other plants. You got some squash and melons, cucumbers, all this stuff over here. But with basil, you're going to want to have them planted now. Is really the kind of the last call for basil. I mean, you can start them later than that if you plan on growing them and just having a later harvest, but for a nice big harvest, typically you want to grow them now. So these are some seeds that I started a little later. And then over here, you'll see down here some basil that I have grown here and started about. These are about 7 weeks old. So they're about as this. They're actually started the same time as my tomatoes, which you see all the way over there and up here. Tomatoes looking great. But these were planted at the same time. Now, these are spicy globe basil is the variety. So the spicy globe basil is what these are. Also, if we look over to the left here, we got all these that I'm planting out right now. And so all these basil are started at the same exact time. They're about 7 to 8 weeks old. Some of them, these purple basil were planted here in peat pots, and that's kind of what I want to touch on. Is that you want to start most of your basil in as much of a sterile mix as you can. The ones over here, the ones to my left that I just showed you, are being grown in a sterile sphagnum moss and cocoa coir mix. And then when they get a little older like this, you want to plant your basil in when they get about 2 to 3 seed leaves. You want to plant them out into a little bit bigger containers. These are 3-inch containers, and you want to get them all growing in a little bit more of a fertile mix. So this is a mix right here at my feet. It's about 15 to 20% perlite, and then it is roughly about 40, I believe 40% sphagnum moss, and then the remainder, about 30 so some odd percent, is going to be some horse manure. So horse manure is a great manure to use because it's very inert. It doesn't have a lot. It gives a little for a long time, especially if it's well aged. You're going to want to use well aged. You can also use steer manure, but you're going to want to use well-aged manure for this. Something that's going to basically be about aged for at least 2 years, but preferably more like 3 to 4 years is going to be your best. This stuff was 4 years old, aged horse manure, and you can see like there's a little clump right there, and that breaks up right there, and you'll see that it's right at the end here where my thumb's at. There's a bit of horse manure that's actually breaking up, and that is very fertile for your plants. This stuff is, these plants right here have been growing in some horse manure. I'm going to now kind of separate some of these out because you see I have 2 plants growing here. This one I might actually leave alone, but this one I might separate out at least these 3 and put them in their own pots. We've got spicy globe basil, piccolino basil, Italian large leaf, Thai right here, the little bit pointier leaf, and then the purple crimson basil as well. So we're doing all that in here. Now potting it up is very simple. See if I can do this with one hand. If not, I will have to put you down and put you on the tripod. But you're going to want to fill up your pot maybe a little less in there. Not have a big old thing of old peat pot in your way. And then you're going to want to grab, let's see, I'm still doing the Italian large leaf, and I think I'm going to have to put you on the tripod for the rest of this because I breaking up all those is going to be a problem on a handheld. So give me a second. All right, now we got you on the tripod. That is all good. So we got we're gonna peel our pot back. I like to peel these back, and I'll throw them on the ground and then clean them up later. But I don't leave these pots on. Everybody says that they can grow right through them, what have you. I've seen it where the roots will grow through them, but I prefer to just kind of lightly peel this back like so, and kind of gently get those roots to come off from them because they will grow through them. You can see that they're growing into it right there, but I have also heard horror stories of them not. So what you're going to want to do is just kind of massage the root ball, get some of those roots off, and you're going to want to start separating these plants out. Now, there's some nicer ways to do this, but that's really what I do. You just kind of pull chunks. There's another one right there. And then these two are real close. So, I mean, you can make a determination whether you want to split these. I might leave these two together, to be honest, because I have plenty of plants as it is. And basil can grow in clumps like that and be fine, and still bush out pretty well. So I'm going to grab these other peat pots that I have. I use peat pots because they're cheap, and easy to use. Granted, they're like a one use, but you know, it's I just like the way that they hold some water in them, and the roots tend to like it. This has a nice big old clump of horse manure in there, which is perfect, along with a little bit of that sphagnum moss. So we're going to bury this in here, and we're going to cover it up as much media as we can, and bury a little bit of that stem extra. So now we have that basil plant. Now another way to kind of promote more basil to grow. These are a little bit on the laggy side right now because they're all competing in the same pot together. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to top it, right? That looks pretty dramatic right now, and it looks like I just killed my plant. But this thing is going to grow a bunch of leaves really quick. Now, I mean, you might want to give these guys a little bit of a rest before you top, especially if you had to pull all the plants apart. Basil's pretty resilient though, and my guess is that it'll go through a tiny bit of transplant shock, but I'm going to get this very wet, and keep it wet for the next couple of days. Not soaking wet, but nice and moist, and that way that it minimizes the amount of transplant shock and just shock to the plant. So I'm going to do the same thing with all the rest of these. You're going to grab a little bit of soil like that, grab that plant. That one has a nice little root ball on it. Stick that root ball down in there a little bit deeper than it was. You can pull these seed leaves off as well because they're not really doing anything for the plant at this point. And then we will give it a little bit more soil and tamp it down just like that. So this one I'll leave because it's not super laggy, and I'll just let it grow. I'll probably give it a little bit of a topping of its of its growth here in a little while, but I'm going to let that one grow a little bit. And now they're all in their new home. That's how easy it is to pot up basil. And it is extremely easy to grow basil as long as you give yourself enough time, and you also give yourself a minute. Fertilizer is something extremely important for basil, especially once they get their true leaves. So you have your cotyledons, or the seed leaves here. Once they get their first set of true leaves, that's when you want to start fertilizing. And I typically will fertilize. It is Fox Farm Grow Big is actually the fertilizer. And the fertilizer is a 6:4:4 ratio. I'll put that on screen right here so you can see it. 6:4:4, and I'll put a link down in the description to that exact fertilizer that I use. But it is a liquid-based fertilizer, and Fox Farm 6:4:4 is a great fertilizer to use for seedlings. You can actually use it half strength, which is what I do when they get their first seed leaves, or first true seed leaves. It's not the cotyledons, but the actual true leaves. I will give them a half strength about once a week, and then once they get their second set, I'll typically give them a full strength fertilizer about once a week. Will be how I do it. Now, if I've seen that they're a little yellow or they're not, the growth has been stunted, I'll typically give them a little extra fertilizer, which will help boost their growth fairly quickly and give them some nice dark, rich leaves. And that would be, so I give them just an extra watering for that week of fertilizer. But that's our basil growing right there. It's very easy. Fertilizing is not the most uh, it's not the most complicated thing. People get scared about over fertilizing, but um, even with this horse manure rich fertile or soil here, you're not going to run into a bunch of issues with over fertilization. So let's pull this off from here, do the next one. But you get the point here. You're just going to want to be careful with your roots. Try to be gentle. Try to pull your pot off. Now, if you have a regular plastic pot, of course you can just pull it out. That's the nice part about plastic. But then you're introducing, there's been some talk about forever chemicals being in the plastic and all that other stuff recently, and I've been trying to get away from plastic a little bit, even though these are a single use type of a deal. It's honestly doesn't bother me too much. Try to bust all these apart here. Put this little guy in there. Little kind of big guy, to be honest, because he had a. But each plant is going to net me a lot of basil. As you could tell, I overseeded my basil, but I'm also giving basil away to other people. And I am also a big fan of basil. I love the plant. So I love the smell. I love the way that it grows. I love the smell of fresh cut leaves in my house in the summertime and the fall when we're starting to get the last harvests of them. And so I'm a big fan, and I love to have it around. So we're gonna keep plenty of them in the garden. Everybody, that's growing basil. I just love the way that these little spicy glow basils look, don't you? It's very easy to grow basil. It's one of the most flavorful and aromatic plants you can grow in the garden, and it's extremely fun to grow them as well. As long as you stay to those type of things, sterile mixture, constant fertilization, not too wet, not too dry in terms of watering them, you'll typically always be successful in growing your basil and getting to that point where you can plant them out in the garden with your tomatoes. Basils and tomatoes are kind of best friends in a way that basil doesn't like a lot of intense sun, and tomatoes can kind of help shade them a little bit. But also, basil has some chemicals and some smells to it that the tomato hornworm, which is a natural predator of the tomato, don't like. So it's very easy to keep the tomato hornworm away, or at least a little more easy keep them away, especially in those areas where you have a lot of pressure from the tomato hornworm. You can't really keep them away 100%, but it's easier to keep them away when you plant basil nearby. So make sure and plant your basil out at the same time as you plant out your your tomatoes, and that's typically after the threat of frost. But with all those type of tips, you're going to be successful at growing basil. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. I'm excited to be in the garden growing with you guys for this 2025 gardening season, and look forward to more. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and remember to grow what you love and love what you grow. Take care.